Aldrachi Reaver is arguably one of the most engaging specs for Demon Hunter. It takes the class, which is often known for being a two-button spec, into something a little bit more complex and rewarding when it's played correctly. Reaver's Glaive can be procced in two different ways, either by using the Hunt or by collecting soul fragments. Each soul fragment you collect grants a buff that lasts for 30 seconds, and once you have 6 stacks, you can cast Reaver's Glaive. This spec relies heavily on cycling through these souls, mainly generated via Demonic Appetite, Aldrachi Tactics, and Wounded Quarry. Anyway, back to Reaver's Glaive. This, whenever it's available, is going to replace your Throw Glaive, but it's on an independent cooldown in and of itself, meaning you won't have to worry about having a charge of Throw Glaive available or anything like that. Then, whenever you use Reaver's Glaive, you're going to gain 2 buffs, Glaive Fury and Rending Strike, that each individually will empower your next Blade Dance or Chaos Strike, as well as their meta-empowered versions. Your next Blade Dance, after using Reaver's Glaive, will do 3 extra ticks of damage on all targets, and your next Chaos Strike will apply a debuff called Reaver's Mark to the chosen target that will increase the rest of your damage to them for 20 seconds. Now, to add to this, the order that we consume these 2 buffs will dictate what empowerment we gain. If you use Chaos Strike first, following your Reaver's Glaive, your next Blade Dance will, instead of doing 3 extra ticks of damage, now do 6. Whereas alternatively, if you use Blade Dance first, the damage increase applied by your next Chaos Strike will instead be double the amount, so a 12% increase up from 6%. Now obviously, the intent for this is to provide you with a choice between doing additional AoE damage or single target damage. Every time you're going to want to press Chaos Strike first after your Reaver's Glaive. While the 2 stacks of Reaver's Mark is useful for overall damage, this spec is really about stacking as many modifiers as you can to set up massive one-shot death sweeps. The other part to consider about Reaver's Glaive is the end cap of Thrill of the Fight, which provides us with a large boost to both damage and attack speed whenever we use Reaver's Glaive. Now, because of this, coupled with the buffs to our next Chaos Strike and Blade Dance, we're ideally going to be wanting to stack as many of these modifiers for our burst windows. This can mean potentially delaying either your Reaver's Glaive or Essence Break and I-Beam to combine together to get the most out of it. This is especially important for when looking to use either Sigil of Spite or Sigil of Flame, which is why we didn't include the latter in our sustain priority. Currently, both of these are bugged with Thrill of the Fight, causing them to double dip from the damage increase. This means that if you save them for when Thrill of the Fight is active, both sigils will deal 40% increased damage, allowing for some ridiculous burst potential. So, moving on, another key thing to note is that this build also alters how we use the Hunt, as it's the only guaranteed way to trigger Reaver's Glaive. Ideally, we're going to want to use the Hunt very early into the game to activate our first Reaver's Glaive, which we can then pair with our initial use of meta to apply immediate pressure right from the start and get the ball rolling. Now let's dive into our choice notes. Unhindered Assault versus Evasive Action might seem like a no-brainer here, but it's not so clear-cut anymore. Vengeful Retreat resets the cooldown of Fellblade from Unhindered Assault is just too good to pass up. This means we can proc Inertia whenever we want, and with Unbound Chaos working on Fellblade, it's a big part of our burst damage. Now on the other hand, Evasive Action can be useful in situations against Subtlety Rogues or comps where you really need to outplay to survive, but honestly, even then, it's really just not worth it. Next up, we have Incorruptible Spirit versus Army Unto Oneself. Army Unto Oneself is just too good to pass up here too. While Incorruptible Spirit does provide a small absorb, the real value is in the damage reduction provided by Fellblade, which we're using regularly. This gives us high uptime on a 10% passive damage reduction, making it far more reliable and consistent than the small absorb. Our final choice node is Preemptive Strike versus Keen Engagement. Both options are relatively unimpactful, but Keen Engagement gives you a little extra fury when throwing Reaver's Glaive, while Preemptive Strike adds more damage to throw Glaive. Generally, keen engagement does tend to have more value when fighting comps that kite you, as you'll likely have lower uptime on your target. The additional fury helps you to continue doing damage. Alright, I think that wraps just about everything up here. Now who's ready to see how we use both of these talent trees to deliver the maximum burst damage possible? Well, stay tuned, because up next, we dive into burst sequences.